So, in your argument is basically human beings don't see these human beings as valuable, so now it's okay to kill them. Well, you could apply that logic. You could apply that logic to Nazi Germany. The Germans saw the Jews as less valuable. Does that justify them killing them? No. So your argument doesn't work.
The analogy you're making is there are a lot of discrepancies we need to clarify in these analogies you're making, because I think the Nazis were absolutely wrong. They unjustly viewed them as lesser beings because they're of a certain group, however they viewed it.
And that's what you're doing.
I guess let me just paint this picture. If my mom or my daughter, my wife, any woman for that matter, who got raped, got an unwanted pregnancy, she should have the option to have an abortion. I think that's just like the bottom line for me.
So simply because she was victimized, now she can become a victimizer.
Well, someone has the right to not go through like 9 months of pregnancy, has the right to not give birth. Like this is serious. Like going through giving birth is a serious deal. Being pregnant is a serious thing. Some women don't want to do that.
Right, but they don't have the right to kill someone in order to avoid that. Yeah, so the baby's their right to do what they want with their body does not supersede the baby's right to live through the normal process of growing in the human life. No, it doesn't.
They do have more right there.
No, they don't.
Yes, their right trumps that baby's right. Absolutely.
Oh, that's just your arbitrary opinion. God says differently.
That is what the opinion of millions and millions of other people share with me for a reason.
So consensus of the majority determines what's moral?
Not necessarily.
Because there's been times in history when the majority believed that the minority should be killed off. And that's what they did. Was that moral because the majority thought that?
No reason that people hold my beliefs then, that share my beliefs?
Well, I know why they do it. It's because they're selfish and evil.
Well, so if a woman gets raped, she didn't want to get raped, she didn't want to get impregnated.
Yeah.
Why do you not care about what she wants?
Because she wants murder. Because she wants murder. She wants to take away the right of another human being. She wants to
me murdering anyone else walking here though.
Because she wants to do something that's worse than what the rapist did to her.
No, but the bottom line.
So it's like rape is wrong.
What happens with her body? That's like the bottom line. She gets.
No, she doesn't.
Yes, she does.
No, God determines what we do with our bodies, not human beings.
I don't. A lot of people don't even know who God is. They've
never
spoken
do.
to God, they've never seen God.
The book of Romans tells us everybody knows that God exists.
No.
You know that God exists. Everybody knows God.
I don't know God at all. I've never seen him. I've never heard him.
You've suppressed the truth about him. You subconsciously know him, but you've suppressed the truth about him. Think about this. How in the world are you justified in any belief that you have about anything if God has not revealed to you the true nature of reality? The all-knowing mind needs to give your finite mind facts about reality.
God revealing everything to me.
Because if he didn't, you couldn't know anything.
Why?
Because finite consciousness can't justify beliefs on its own.
What is finite consciousness?
Consciousness that doesn't have all the facts about reality in it. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. So there's always something that we're not aware of that could invalidate everything we think we know. For example, how do you prove that I exist right now? How do you know I'm not a projection of your consciousness?
Based off of what could be, based off of what I can't interpret, based off what I can't perceive. I'm not sure. There's millions of different possibilities that could be the case if you're not sure, if you don't have revelation from someone who knows everything. Because you don't know everything, I don't know everything, there could always be a reality that we're not aware of that invalidates everything we think we know. So maybe consciousness doesn't exist for more than a nanosecond, and it's just, maybe everything you're experiencing is just a rapid succession of nanosecond consciousnesses. How do you know that's not true? Or maybe your consciousness lasts 5 minutes and you have memories that are implanted into your mind from somewhere else that never happened. There's all these different possibilities that you can think of that could be the case. Because you don't know everything, you don't know, it could always be that reality is the case, and you're just not aware of it. Because you don't know everything, it could be the case. You have to know everything, all the facts, to be able to rule out What's true and what's not true? What's possible and what's not possible?
It's like you're trying to bring in, like, what? I don't even know what point you're trying to make with saying how consciousness is or what it could be. What is your point behind that?
So like I said, how do you know that consciousness exists for longer than a nanosecond? Any individual consciousness. How do you know? You don't know. Okay. So how do you know that I exist and I'm not a projection of your consciousness right now? You can say, oh, I don't know. You can't prove it. So I can bring up all these different scenarios and say, how do you know this isn't true? And you would say, well, you would not be able to say, I know that's not true because of this. You'd have to admit that maybe that's the case in your worldview. So if there's all these different possibilities I can bring up and show you this could be the case, and you're saying, well, maybe that is the case, if that's what you say, you'd have to admit that that could be the case in your worldview. Then how are you justified in any belief that you have about anything? How do you know that you exist right now in the way that you think you exist? You can't prove that you exist in the way you think you exist. You just put blind faith in a certain version of reality that you believe exists. So right now you believe that you've been talking to another human being this entire time, but you can't justify that belief. Please justify that belief with your worldview.
Justify my belief that I'm speaking with another person?
Yes.
Because I hear you, I see you, if I come close enough to you, I can smell you, there's all these senses that
How do you know that's not illusory?
Because I trust my senses.
It's blind faith in the belief that senses exist.
It's not blind.
You have no evidence. You have no evidence.
I do, I have my experience, that's my evidence.
But you can't even prove that experience
Billions
exists.
of other people have the same experience as I do, so
Okay,
I'm gonna trust my senses.
Well, those people could be projections in your consciousness. How do you know you're not the only mind that exists? Experiences don't give you truth.
So, experiences
by themselves, they don't give you truth. Because how do you know that experiences even exist? And for experience,
are you make by me not being certain in what reality I live in? Well, what point are you? What are you connecting that with?
You're putting faith in a worldview in which the only type of consciousness is limited and finite. My worldview that I'm putting faith in is one that involves omniscience, who knows all the facts, God, revealing to my finite mind what's true so I can be justified in my beliefs. Knowledge is defined as justified true belief.
Showing you anything. How do you know it's God? How do you
because if I have, the Holy Spirit indwelt me.
How do you know?
How do I know? If God doesn't exist and do that, then knowledge is not possible.
How do you know
so the proof that
now. What did you say? How do you know the Holy Spirit did what?
How do I know the Holy Spirit filled me?
Yeah.
Because my life changed.
How do you know what happened in your life?
What?
What in your life changed?
My actions.
Your actions. What?
Obedience to God, like following the Bible.
So you knew the Holy Spirit answered you upon you following the Bible. That seems like a loop.
The Holy Spirit changed my life so that I live in accordance with the Bible.
How do you know it's the Holy Spirit? How do you know it's like the Holy Spirit answered you?
Because the Bible tells us about the Holy Spirit.
How do you know, but is there any
And it tells us what the Holy Spirit does. The Holy Spirit
exists?
The Holy Spirit tells.
Like how do you know the Holy Spirit exists?
Because if the biblical worldview isn't true, if the Holy Spirit is part of the biblical worldview revealed in the Bible, if the Christian worldview is not true, then knowledge is not possible. So as soon as I assert the idea of knowledge existing, as soon as I believe that knowledge exists, in order to be consistent, I have to trust in omniscience revealing to non-omniscience what's true. I have to put faith in the Christian worldview in order to justify my beliefs. It seems circular.
You had to put faith into. You just said you had to put faith into something being true.
I have to put faith in a worldview in which the omniscient being reveals to me what's true, so that I can justify my beliefs. That's being consistent. When I say knowledge exists, or you exist, or she exists.
What you're seeing in the Bible is the right way to is the right worldview. How do you know it's the right worldview to adopt?
Because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be able to know anything. If God does not exist and reveal to me the true nature of reality, I can't know anything.
How do you know
so
as
soon as I assert the idea of knowledge existing, in order to be consistent, I also have to believe that God reveals to me what's true. If he doesn't do that, if he doesn't exist, then I'm sitting here with my own finite consciousness, unable to justify any belief about anything, because I could always be wrong. There could always be something that I'm not aware of that could invalidate everything I think I know.
What?
So it seems circular, because all reasoning is ultimately circular. Everyone always has to circle back to their ultimate authority in any line of reasoning to justify any belief in a line of reasoning to get to when they're trying to establish that their ultimate authority should be trusted in.
So you're saying all reasoning eventually trickles down to an authoritative...
Everyone puts faith in an ultimate authority. Your ultimate authority is your own mind.
So is
I'm
science
saying
an
that's not.
ultimate authority?
I'm saying that's you shouldn't trust in
Is
that.
science an ultimate authority?
No,
So why do people put faith in science?
because God created an orderly universe, a law-like universe that operates in a manner that can be predicted. In Genesis 8, God tells us that he made the world in a way in which it's going to continue to be the same way as it's been. But without revelation from God, we have no justification for the belief that the future is going to be like the past. Just because everything's continued in a certain manner in which we see the future being the same way over and over again, what we think this is going to happen and then it happens, we predict it's going to happen and then it happens, just because it's always happened doesn't mean the future is going to be like the past. Like David Hume, the philosopher, and Bertrand Russell, these atheist philosophers pointed this out. It's called the problem of induction. So we're always putting faith in the belief that the future is going to be like the past. And without the biblical worldview, you actually have no justification for believing that the future is going to be like the past, that the present is like the past.
Because through the understanding of the physical laws of the universe, we can actually we can predict how like galaxies, stars move on like cosmic scales. We do understand that through science, not through God.
Well, you can't justify your belief in your perception of those things, because those could be
physicists can't justify their beliefs through all this scientific, all this math they've done.
No, I mean you can't be sure that they even exist in your worldview. How do you know those scientists aren't projection of your consciousness?
Well, why do you keep referring back to why I cannot prove that they do exist?
Because you're trusting in finite consciousness. You can't justify beliefs by putting faith in finite consciousness that doesn't know everything, because you could always be wrong.
I don't know how you know you put your trust in something that has infinite knowledge, infinite consciousness. How do you know that?
I know it because if he didn't give me the true nature of reality in Revelation, I could not know anything.
How do you know he gave that?
So knowledge would not be able to exist if the omniscient does not reveal to the non-omniscient what's true. Because there needs to be someone with all the facts in their mind, so that they can know what's true and tell other people what's true. So if there's no omniscient mind, then there's nobody who knows all the facts. And if nobody knows all the facts, then we're all just stuck with our limited consciousness that doesn't know everything, that for all we know is deceiving us all the time.
But we all take in all that we can, though.